Welcome to another episode of HardFoul Radio. We are back here. It is our new nighttime schedule, 7 to 9. Appreciate everybody for joining in. Excuse me. So let's get started, man. This is where it's Super Bowl week. It's one of the most exciting weeks in sports that we have. It's the big game. There's going to be a stupid amount of people watching football on Sunday. And despite that, this is one of those times where I think media just gets a little too ahead of itself. Media is already, and you see this with the big companies, how they are handling their coverage of the Super Bowl, and they're basically leading you into, oh, it's not that exciting. Oh, this isn't that big of a game. Oh, we are lacking star power. Listen. Last year, and I get it, it was Mahomes and they were going for the three-peat, and that is special. But for a company like Fox Sports, ESPN, who had sent all these people out to do the Super Bowl, they had all these different shows. They had them out there live at the Super Bowl, recording all their shows, doing all this stuff. They flew Tom Brady out. Obviously, Fox had the Super Bowl. To go from that to, we're not sending anybody out. Everybody's going to do their shows from back home. And we're going to basically sit there and start day one. And the Super Bowl's not that exciting. This is where media gets ahead of itself. Media, sports media, when you cover anything, sports is the easiest example. When you cover anything, you are not bigger than the product that you cover. I know you could have 1 million plus subscribers. You could have 1 million plus followers on Instagram, Twitter. You, as an individual show, media personality, reporter, whatever you are covering, you are not bigger than the actual thing that you cover. It just does not work. It's not real. So instead of what should be two major storylines, two being a common thing, we have second-year quarterback Drake May in a Super Bowl. A guy who is from what has looked like to this point one of the best quarterback draft classes that we've ever had potentially. In his second year, has made it all the way to a Super Bowl, has a chance to be he is already going to be the second youngest starter ever in the Super Bowl, only to Dan Marino, and has a chance to be the youngest guy ever supplanting Ben Roethlisberger to ever win a Super Bowl. So let's start there. Then you have another two. He is going against a second-year head coach, Mike Macdonald, which took a Seattle franchise, which you had the Legion of Boom, you had Russell Wilson, and then you had a bunch of, where are we? Pete Carroll eventually leaves. We see he's no longer who he used to be. Again, Russell Wilson, we saw the decline even before getting traded to Denver. All of the Legion of Boom was no longer there. And Seattle is one of those cities and one of those teams that it feels really easy to get lost in the wilderness. They're not a New York. They're not one of these huge supermarkets or iconic NFL franchises like a Green Bay. Even this year, as dominant as they were, you still didn't see people reporting or talking about Seattle in the same light that you saw in LA Rams or even the Chargers or an iconic franchise like the Steelers or the Packers. So we have a second-year head coach, defensive guru, going against a second-year premier quarterback. In what world, to the many media members at ESPN, FS1, the YouTubers, the podcast, in what world is this not a primetime Super Bowl matchup? In what world? The only world you can argue it is in the world of revisionist history where most media goes to live and die. Tom Brady's Super Bowl against the Rams would not be considered this all-time legendary event if he himself did not turn into Tom Brady. That was second-year starting quarterback going against the greatest show on turf, but nobody going into that game because the Patriots were double-digit underdogs. It was, the Rams are just going to smoke them, and it was all about building up Kurt Warner, but this felt like an overachieving Patriots team. And we have the same thing here. And I'm not saying Drake May is going to turn into Tom Brady, but let's leave the door open for this. That there is a chance that New England somehow, after 5 years, a whole 5 years of being bad, post Tom Brady, bless you. Sorry, New England, apparently I can't talk about you being bad. I start sneezing. A whole 5 years now has their heir apparent. Teams like the Jets, the Dolphins, my Broncos, they've been looking for who's the next Elway, who's the next Marino, who's the next Joe Namath. Jets are still looking. The Patriots, after 5 years, seem to have their quarterback, their head coach. And Seattle, again, transitioning out of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, Hall of Fame head coach, Hall of Fame quarterback. The Legion of Boom was a few years before that, but this all-time iconic defense. And now they're back in the Super Bowl with a great defense, a quarterback who has had a wonderful all-time redemption story, not just in the NFL, but in sports, and a brilliant young defensive coach. In what world is this not an exciting Super Bowl? In what world do we live in where media members feel like, oh, I can downplay this? This isn't, we've heard it all year. And this is what I need people to understand. We've heard it all year. There's no Mahomes. There's no Lamar. There's no Joe Burrow. Those teams are struggling. Is the NFL, this is just a weird year for the NFL. No, it's not. It's a time of transition, which you see in every major sport. And I'm not saying those guys will never win. I'm not saying those guys will never be back in the playoffs. I'm not saying those guys will never not be obviously extremely relevant members of the NFL and what they're able to produce. But the same way when you had the end of Peyton Manning and you had the Broncos were dominant, you had the Patriots were dominant, you had the Steelers were dominant, you had these clear-cut teams that were like, okay, these are the best in the AFC. Peyton Manning retires, Denver goes into a free fall, Ben Roethlisberger gets old, Pittsburgh maintains this, oh, we finish about 500, but not a serious threat. Brady leaves the Patriots. That then opened the transition for Josh Allen coming of age, Mahomes coming of age, Josh Allen coming of age. This is simply a transition in sports. And again, that doesn't mean Mahomes is never going to, I'm not saying Mahomes is never going to make the playoffs again. I'm not saying Lamar is never going to make the playoffs again. I'm not saying they're not going to be competitive, potentially win a Super Bowl. What I'm saying is let's not downplay, again, second year head coach, second year quarterback in a year that has been about, okay, the old guard, the guys who have been dominating, there's new guys here who are joining in this conversation. There's new guys here who are planting their flag, making their claim of why they need to be considered an AFC, NFC power respectively. When you talk about the best teams in the AFC next year, you cannot ignore the New England Patriots. When you talk about the best teams in the NFC next year, you cannot ignore the Seattle Seahawks. This is a wonderful matchup by any metric. And that's coming from someone who is really upset that his favorite team, his quarterback, broke his ankle. And I thought truly a real chance to win the Super Bowl this year. And unfortunately, because of injury, we're not here. But that doesn't take away. Imagine how crazy I would sound if I came on here and said, well, it's not that exciting. And to all the easy schedule people, and I've been sick the last 2 weeks. I haven't had a really good chance to get this off. To the easy schedule people, you guys do know how math works, right? So 7 of the last 10 Super Bowl winners had a top 10 easy schedule. I've mentioned that first Super Bowl, Tom Brady versus the Rams. The 99 Rams had the easiest schedule of all time for a Super Bowl winner. And I believe I think it's the second easiest schedule of all time, easiest all time for a Super Bowl winner. The more games you win, the less games that your people on your schedule win. You understand that, right? And that might sound dumb, or that might sound like, oh, that's obvious. But this is a 2 seed and a 1 seed from their conference, respectively. The 1 and 2 seeds played in the AFC Championship game. And the Bears were one throw or one finish your route, depending on how you want to view it, from being 1 and 2 seed in the NFC. The teams that won games, the teams that were good this year, they deserved to make it as far as they did this year. They were just better this year. So I don't want to hear the easy schedule crap. I don't want to hear the, oh, who have the Patriots beaten? Because at the end of the day, when we look back on this Super Bowl, to whoever wins it, we're not going to go, how many Super Bowl winners do you look back on and go, oh man, they just had such an easy schedule? I watched my team win a Super Bowl in 2015. And besides Gronk giving me a heart attack in the AFC Championship game because we couldn't cover, because the Broncos couldn't cover them, I don't remember deeply their playoff run. I don't know how, quote unquote, hard their schedule was that year. They won a ring. That's all that matters. I've just seen, one of the cool things about doing this at night is I get to kind of see everything play out during the day. And I could not believe all of the stuff I was seeing today from ESPN, FS1, guys on YouTube, people downplaying the Patriots schedule, people downplaying what Seattle's done this year. Like, it's just all a bunch of crap, man. Good teams are good. These are two great teams in the Super Bowl. These are a million wonderful storylines. If you want to be one of those people that just don't like sports and want to complain or want to nag, fine, do you, but don't bring your negativity over to the rest of us. We're trying to watch a great game on Sunday. A lot more to talk about, obviously. Why would he say that coming up after the break? A lot more Super Bowl talk. It is a wonderful week for sports. It's a wonderful week for HardFoul Radio. This is HardFoul Radio, and I'll be back momentarily. It's been about, okay, the old guard, the guys who have been dominating, there's new guys here who are joining in this conversation. There's new guys here who are And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So I got two AFC West storylines in this block, and then obviously why would he say that? But let's start with the first one. And this one, a little bit of team focused, but I think it's good. So again, I haven't been here the last 2 weeks. I've been sick, and so got urgent care a couple times. Had some stuff I had to take care of. You can kind of see my eyes still a little bit red. So there was a lot of talk about Sean Payton and Bo Nix, and the story was, well, Sean came out and said basically that Bo had something predisposed in his ankle, and he referenced surgeries that he had in the past, and then Bo held a impromptu press conference and basically denied that and said no, there was nothing predisposed, and he had said Sean shouldn't talk about his surgeries because he doesn't know how many he's had. Now, I'm not going to really get into the specifics of medicals because here's the reality. I don't know Sean Payton. I don't know Bo Nix. I don't know how many surgeries he's had. So I'm not going to sit there and try to talk like I know something that I don't. What I will say, however, I love the fact Bo pushes back. Here's the thing. I think Sean Payton is a brilliant play caller. I do. I think Sean Payton's a brilliant head coach. I think Sean Payton knows football extremely, extremely well. But what comes with that is, and he comes from that Parcells line of coaching, and that's him, that's Bill Belichick, obviously Bill Parcells himself, and it's this very, I run the room, I'm in charge, my way goes. And we saw Bill, as great as he is, and we'll discuss his Hall of Fame stuff, which was obviously stupid. As great as he is, as great as Bill Belichick was, you saw what happened towards the end of his time in New England, where it was just everybody had to listen to him. Nobody could really have strong opinions. There was no real pushback. He was hiring family. He was making bad personnel calls. And it was a lot of, I'm Bill Belichick. I know what I'm doing. I'm smarter than you. There was no real pushback. And Brady was just the ultimate good soldier until Brady didn't really push back. Brady just left. So I think it's actually a really good sign that you've seen Bo and Sean have these mini arguments on the sideline. I think that's a great sign for Bo Nix, and I think that's something that Sean Payton needs. I don't know the dynamic between him and Drew Brees. I know Drew, when he's talked about Sean the last couple of years, as he's been more involved in media, that you do need to have a backbone. You do need to be able to stand up to Sean sometimes. And so, and I hate the Bo Nix Sean, the Bo Nix Drew Brees comparisons. I think they're vastly different players, obviously. But Bo being willing to say, hey, look, I will push back, whether it is on the field, and I'm going to say, hey, I don't like what we're doing. I don't like these play calls. And him even going back to the media of like, hey, look, man, you don't know how many surgeries I've had. And I think they'll both be fine because I think they are both adults enough to go in the room and say, hey, look, didn't love how you did that. I didn't love how I did that, or I didn't love how you did that. And let's move on, continue going forward, and we'll be fine because they're both adults. They're both very well compensated. And the fact is, they need each other to have success. Not every marriage of quarterback head coach has to be this perfect, we always love each other, we're always in agreement. That stuff's fantastic when you're winning, but when there's struggles, when there's losses, when there's injuries, which is a struggle, you need guys who are willing to speak their mind. Don't let the room or the entire organization just become solely the voice of Bill Belichick, solely the voice of Sean Payton. Like, these guys do need some pushback. I even think it's a really great sign for Denver that they hired Davis Webb. They promoted him. He went from the quarterback coach to now the offensive coordinator. He's one of the few guys who Sean has let call plays, even if it was only in the preseason. And I think that's a big thing for Sean. Sean Payton has always called plays. He's been very adamant about calling plays. When the Denver media has pushed back because they don't like certain game plans, or primarily it's the screen game, they don't like when he calls certain screens, he's still able to go out there and say, like, look, I'm not giving a play call. I'm not giving a play call. He's been very adamant about that. I think Davis Webb is one of the few guys who can get in Sean Payton's ear and say, hey, man, we need to try this. Hey, man, we need to do this. And whether he fully gives up play calling or not, we'll see. That will be to be determined. But I do think the fact that he has the kind of mentality and the kind of personality that can push back on Sean, I think all that stuff's great. I think all that stuff's great. You don't need in a professional sport where it is get the job done or we will get somebody else who can get the job done. You don't have time to just be like, well, maybe. Like, you're going to have to step on some toes. You're going to have to be a little more aggressive. You're going to have to be willing to push back against your head coach. You're going to have to be willing to push back against your coaches, your players, coordinators, all that kind of stuff. So the dynamic right now that's going on in Denver, again, Davis Webb's promoted. Vance Joseph is now back. I like it a lot, man. I think there's a lot of really good things. I know you're never guaranteed to get back to that spot again, but I think there's a lot about the direction Denver is going and this dynamic between coach, coordinator, quarterback. A lot of stuff to really like, man. A lot of stuff to really like. Moving on to why would he say that? And I know I'm going a little bit back in time. Like I said, guys, I haven't been in the last 2 weeks. I've been sick, had issues, so I've been taking care of myself, get myself better, and we are back. This week is cut a little short. There's going to be no Thursday episode. My wife's birthday, so understandable, but I will have some stuff that comes out later this week, and obviously leading into the Super Bowl. LaShawn McCoy. And this is maybe becoming low-hanging fruit. Heading into the AFC Championship game, and LaShawn's kind of the face of this, but I heard this, and really Bronco fans, you deserve to be a part of this too. I saw a lot of really dumb conversation about what is the gap between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham. And listen, I know Sean Payton has a good record with backup quarterbacks. That is, and I thought this was insane going into it. For the regular season, that's a good thing for Sean Payton. To know that if your starting quarterback, for whatever reason, has to miss 4 or 5 games, that he has had success in the regular season to not have it all come crashing down because he has a backup in there, that's a good notch to have. That is a good, hey, look, if our season doesn't implode because we don't have a backup. And the Broncos, historically, go look at their second Super Bowl. Elway got hurt when they won back-to-back. Elway got hurt, had to miss a couple games. I think it was Bubby Brister. Yeah. Came in, and Shannon was like, look, man, we got me, Terrell Davis, Rod Smith. We got a good offensive line. We got a really good defense. Let's just make this work. Just don't crash the Ferrari. That for the regular season is fantastic because that can blow up seasons. If you lose your starter and look at, for example, and obviously, again, don't compare starters, but look at backups. Look at how the Chiefs season, which was already going bad, but look at how inept the Chiefs were as soon as Mahomes was gone. It did not look like a pro offense. So to not have your season blow up because of a backup, that's huge. That's an incredible skill to have for Sean Payton. When you're one and done in the playoffs, and you've got to go into the AFC Championship game, none of the metrics or the stats or the numbers or whatever you want to call it, none of that stuff that had to do with Jarrett Stidham, none of it meant anything because it's a one-and-done scenario. This is a small sample size sport. And the small sample size was Jarrett Stidham had a turnover that gave the Patriots their one score, and then he had a turnover that that sealed the win for the Patriots. And that was the Jarrett Stidham experience. And that doesn't mean, too, that Jarrett Stidham can't be a backup next year for the Broncos, that, he's no good. But the reality is he's a backup. And so when LaShawn McCoy, and I know Bronco fans, some of it was, and again, I was there with you in terms of being optimistic and trying to, be there for Stiddy, and all that stuff. I get the fans a little more. But for LaShawn McCoy to go, I break down film with Bo Nix, and there's really not that big of a difference between him and Jarrett Stidham. Just say don't break down film, bro. Just say that you've got 2 metrics on players, and it's either guys you think are nice, which is from a high-level athlete, you got a way different opinion, and it's vastly different than what normal people think, and someone who was not a high-end athlete, I'll give it to you. But just don't say you break down film and they come out with that. Now, I know Speakeasy, you guys got to get viewers. And I have another video coming out later this week that's separate from the show, and I'll discuss that later. I know you got to give views, so I know you got to say some wild things. But if your opinion of is Jarrett Stidham this close to Bo Nix, it's just categorically insane. And it showed on Sunday. Because you saw also all of the little things. You saw the things that the offensive line can't struggle with despite having 2 first-team All-Pros that Sean Payton has said since day one. Some guys take sacks, some guys don't. And Bo Nix doesn't take sacks. Jarrett Stidham is not that guy. And that could have, all the things that I think you saw on Sunday were all the things that Sean Payton saw in training camp last year, which is why he named Bo Nix the starter pretty early on. He's like, okay, this guy functions like this guy functions like that. That is fine for my backup. That's my starting quarterback. So that whole dialogue, and again, Bronco fans, you should kind of be included, those of you that were going a little overboard with it, but LaShawn McCoy was the face of this. The idea that, again, just say don't watch film, bro. No one, I think, is going, oh my gosh, LaShawn McCoy, the great film watcher. We know why, like, you have a platform, you are funny, you are entertaining, you are a great athlete, you're the Eagles' all-time leading rusher, you're an all-decade player, you have all these great accolades. You don't gotta lie, bro. You don't gotta lie. There's a bunch of coaching hires. Shout out to Clint Kubiak, Clint Kubiak is attempting to do what Mike Macdonald did. Mike Macdonald, a year ago, one of the hottest coaching candidates on the market. Ravens fans will tell you they wish they that they fired Harbaugh a year earlier and gave Macdonald the job. Mike Macdonald looked at the LA Rams and Sean McVay and the San Francisco 49ers, who I know had a bunch of injuries this year, but still a very talented roster, and Kyle Shanahan, and said, I'm going to go to that division as a defensive coach, and I'm going to shut them down. Because that's what the Seahawks knew they had to deal with. The Seahawks knew they potentially had the 2 brightest offensive head coaches, both young. I know Kyle Shanahan looks like he's aged 50 years in the time that he's been the 49ers coach. But the 2 best young offensive-minded coaches, and they said, hey, can you come here and stop him? And Macdonald said, bet. And that's what Clint Kubiak is doing. Clint Kubiak is going into a division with the number 1 seed, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, another playoff team, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, and oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes coming off his injury, and we know who they are, the reigning dynasty of the NFL. And he's basically going in there and saying, look, I think I can be successful. And this is a pitch he has to make to Tom Brady, by the way. And I don't think Tom is going for the normal bullshit. I don't have a way to prove that. The guy who was so hyper obsessive about football, loves football, talks football all the time, the greatest player we've ever seen, the kind of psychoanalyzing he probably does in regards to this sport, I don't think he's going for the dumb cliche answers. And this guy said, look, I'm going to take my playbook, my schemes, and I'm going to take Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the first pick in the draft, and I'm going to take him, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Max Crosby, and the other 49 guys on this roster, because after those 4, it's going to be real tough, and say, I'm going into the division with Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. And I'm just going to be honest with you, I like it. And I don't ever want to give AFC West teams credit. But I like the fact that Kubiak, the mentality of I'm going in to one of the toughest divisions, one of the best coach divisions in the history of football in terms of resumes and accolades at the time of coaching in the AFC West, and said, give me my quarterback. I got a tight end. I got a running back that you could argue we're not 100% sold on. I know the offensive line was terrible, and so Ashton Genty, if you want to we can blame the offensive line for the reason he never got going, but that doesn't work in year 2. In year 2, you got to be productive. Sean Payton did the same thing, by the way. Sean Payton went into the division, Denver, who had been horrible for basically a decade, and it's like, can I fix Russell Wilson while at the same time going against Harbaugh, Herbert, Reid, Mahomes, And the Raiders, it was a toss up. The Raiders are now the consensus fourth best team, but that was not a consensus when they first joined the division. You could have said Denver was the worst team, and that was valid. And Sean Payton said, "Give me my playbook." And Sean even went and said, "Hey, look, after a year, he's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I need to blow this up." Took the dead cap hit, and in 2 years with the dead cap hit, got them to a 1 seed in the AFC, and maybe not an all time what if, but a really big what if my quarterback doesn't break his ankle in the AFC divisional round. So I like the confidence. I like the bravado. I like the I'm good enough. I'm great enough at my job. I don't care who's in my way. I like all that stuff. But this is going to be a tough head coaching job. We are going to discuss the problem with hiring guys in the NFL coming up after the break. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. the NFL really wanted to do huge insurance policies. Okay. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. So I got two things I want to talk about this block. The first is NBA All-Star Game, NFL Pro Bowl. They both suck. They've sucked for a few years. The Pro Bowl does the games now, and they do all these different little skills competitions, and woo. I think I could fix it in 30 seconds. There's already insurance policies and huge insurance policies in sports, especially collision sports. Like football's the big one, right? You don't want your stars to get hurt during the Pro Bowl, or you're in the NBA, you don't want to get hurt during the All-Star game. And guys don't want to get hurt. The owners and the teams obviously don't want them to get hurt, but the guys themselves really don't want to get hurt. Especially if, and I know there's a lot of talk about, the first time guys, they should be more excited to play and it shouldn't be as big a deal versus the guys who have, like, no one's going to blame LeBron if he's not going super hard in All-Star game number 22, right? I also think he's going to get a starting spot. I believe that Luka might do it because he's his teammate, but somebody is going to start the All-Star game and go, hey, LeBron, get off the bench. You're in the starting lineup. And I think he deserves it. He's one of the greatest players ever, maybe the greatest player ever we've ever seen in a game. He deserves to start, and it's ceremonial, and the people complaining about him being there, they're all just stupid. Write or have it built in the world's largest insurance policy specifically for all-star games or exhibition games, however you got to phrase it. Think about it. If you were a young player, why they don't go as hard as people would want is because if it's your first or second all-star game, or your first or second Pro Bowl, there's a chance you haven't been paid yet. And so you're not going to risk it all and potentially lose hundreds of millions of dollars if you think you are that level of player in a game that by all means doesn't mean anything. But if you could go to that game and let's say he's in the Super Bowl, but let's say Drake May was at the Pro Bowl, right? And so young second-year quarterback, projected top two MVP finish, but great season, a clear franchise quarterback. And he starts that, and if there was an actual Pro Bowl game, right? So put helmets and pads on him, play it like the old times. Actual football game. And he said, well, I'm nervous because if I get hurt, and let's say I never recover, I'm a quarterback. I'm costing myself $250. You get a second contract, $400 to $500 million. What if there was a $250 million plus insurance policy on him to play in the Pro Bowl? Meaning if something were to happen to you, $250 million yours. The NFL can afford it. The NBA can afford it. Ratings and TV deals are through the roof. Because that's really all it comes down to. I know there's been the talk about, we'll give these guys something to play for. If they win the game, it's $1 million. $1 million. As athletes are more and more lucratively paid, they care less and less. I know it's crazy to the average person. It's crazy to me. They care less about 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, $5 million, because they know there's hundreds of millions of dollars between advertising, endorsements, their own contracts. It's not worth them to risk hundreds of millions for $1 million, and we all get that. If someone told you, hey, you make it to this date, you get $100 million. If you don't, you only get $1 million. Well, you're going to do whatever you can to make it to the date where you get $100 million. So just put extremely large insurance plans specifically for exhibition all-star games. Imagine if Joel Embiid knew, hey, look, if I was in this all-star game as a guy who's got injury problems, if I go all out, I'm not jeopardizing my next $200 million contract, $300 million contract. Don't worry, Joel Embiid, we're going to insure that. If you were to go down, would it still suck for the team? Yes. Would it still suck for the player? Obviously. Nobody wants to get hurt. But at the end of the day, they don't want to get hurt because they want to get paid. If you had NFL guys, like, I don't even want to put out names. I don't want to put that out there on anybody. But if you got these Pro Bowl, all-pro guys, because the fans would love to see this level of competition. Like, you put the actual best versus the best on the field, that is a dream game scenario. But we're never going to get it as guys make more and more money, and they are nervous about losing the possibility of getting that money. And I don't begrudge them for that. I don't blame them for that. That's just the reality of the world we live in. You want $100 million. You want $200 million. You don't want the $1 million. $1 million if you win the Pro Bowl, or $1 million if you win the All-Star game. Woo. That's not going to do anything. So put the largest possible insurance plans that you can feasibly come up with and throw that on the game. Put that on every single player. That's how you will start getting some competitive results in the Pro Bowl, in the All-Star game. And again, the Pro Bowl is probably never coming back. The Pro Bowl games or whatever, the flag football, little skill competition, if that's all the NFL wants to do, fine. They're still light years ahead in terms of drawing numbers, and because they drown it out with the whatever the Pro Bowl criticism is, they drown it out with the Super Bowl being right after, and that being the thing people are going to talk about. Like, just put insurance policies out, man. Let's go to another topic. And this is unfortunate, and this one's harder to fix. There was 10 head coach openings this offseason. Despite the Rooney Rule, not a single minority candidate, with the exception of Robert Saleh, who is mixed, was hired. Primarily, though, what people are gravitating to is no black coaches were hired. Here's the thing, man. The reality is, at the end of the day, this is a sport controlled by 32 billionaires. And I root for a team who had a offensive coordinator position come open. And I'm excited that Davis Webb got it, because I believe in Davis Webb, what he can do for this offense, what he can do for this team. But the reality is, they knew he was going to get the job. If Davis Webb wanted the job, it was his. And even though they brought in, to fulfill the Rooney Rule, they brought in another candidate to say, hey, look, we interviewed this guy. The reality is, if they want you, they'll get you. And if they don't want you, they won't pick you. There is no rule that they can enforce to go, hey, look, did you give these guys a fair shake? What I think needs to happen, if you really want to enforce the Rooney Rule, and maybe this does happen and I just don't know, but I couldn't possibly imagine it does. The second you have an open position, so an offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, head coach, right? And you have to notify the league, hey, this person is no longer head coach, coordinator, whatever it is. We are going to start conducting interviews. The same way they have a doctor on the sideline who is third party, doesn't give a rip about football, And if your player starts looking funny, starts seeing two left, starts seeing three of you, and they pull them and they say, I don't care what's going on with your little football game over there. I am a doctor who was here to do best by my client and the player, and I can remove them from the game. I don't give a rip what you say and or do. You need to have somebody like that as soon as they post a position that says, hey, you cannot conduct any business in regards to your in regards to filling this position without a third party representation on site. And you attach heavy fines. You attach not just financial fines, you attach draft picked compensation fines if this third party at any point goes, hey man, you just conducted a bunch of bullshit. And again, I root for a team that conducted some bullshit. They knew who they wanted to hire as their offensive coordinator. They wanted to promote him, which, is that the worst thing in the world? No. But then don't pull me along and say, hey, because I think teams should have the right to say, look, we really want this particular guy. And if you can write, the world is a bunch of writing letters, submitting forms, all this crap, and say, hey, look, he was our quarterback coach. We believe he is good enough to be our offensive coordinator. Here's his actual resume. And again, third party it and say, we believe that we have the guy in the building, or we have the guy that can do this, and we want to promote him. And so we want to forego interviewing because we believe this guy's resume. And if the resume stacks, no different than if you're out of college and you apply to a job and you have to have certain pre-qualifications, and it's like, okay, cool. Maybe to be an offensive coordinator, and I'm just spitballing here, maybe an offensive coordinator, you have to have 2+ years of coaching somewhere on the offensive staff. You got to have, how high was your offense? What was your quarterback's pass rate? Like, you can have these different little metrics. But otherwise, you got to have a third-party person in there and jam them into the team meetings. You are not allowed to conduct any kind of business that has to do with hiring or replacing a coach unless you have a third party in there. Because it's a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of fugazi. It's a bunch of guys who get interviews, and I don't care if you fly them out there, you give them food, you do whatever. You are wasting everybody's time, and to act like the Rooney Rule is going to circumvent these franchises and these billionaires from doing whatever the hell they want, you're lying to yourself. Is it a great rule or a great theory? Yeah. But what's it matter if no one's going to be able to enforce it and no one's going to be able to prove it? So you either get a third party in there. Like what are we doing? And it's frustrating. I fully understand, like, people that are like, oh, well, this is... Because all people can do is be frustrated about this. Because you get... We're about to close here before we go into the second hour. There's two guys in particular this coaching cycle. Brian Flores, Vance Joseph. How much more qualified do you have to be as a defensive coordinator? How much more? Vance Joseph had a better defensive rating than Jesse Minter. Jesse Minter maybe got the best job on the market in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. The Broncos had the third best defense in the league. The Chargers, I believe, were fifth. So he had a better rating than him. He's got head coaching experience. Whether you want to say it's a good or a bad thing because of his record, he's got the experience as a head coach. He had a better rating as a defensive coordinator. And he's got to go back to Denver for one more year. I'm happy about it as a fan. But for him specifically, he's got to feel like, what more do I got to do? Brian Flores, multiple top 5 defenses across multiple franchises. And no one will hire him? He's got to go back and be the highest paid defensive coordinator, which, congrats to him being the highest paid defense coordinator. That's still a huge pay gap between being a head coach. It's frustrating, man. It's just frustrating. Happy Black History Month. What a start. Hour 2 coming up. Hard right, hard left. It is a Monday. This is Hard to Foul Radio. Back momentarily. Start of hour 2. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate anybody for hanging out with me tonight. So we got to do it's a Monday, so hard right, hard left. Thing got the most right, thing got the most wrong. Obviously, I wasn't on it all last week. Again, fighting through some health stuff. So we're gonna do the thing that we got the most right and the thing that we got the most wrong between the two Super Bowl teams and participants. So let's start on a sad note. Thing that we got the most wrong, which was the Patriots as a whole. I did not think the Patriots. I like the Vrabel hire. I have been very vocal about how good I think this quarterback class could have been coming into the season and even last season. Not just not predicting Drake May being a MVP level player, but I thought the roster as a whole was still a draft or two away. I didn't believe in the Stephon Diggs signing. I thought it was a reach, and I thought we had seen Stephon Diggs' best days, which by definition we have, but he is still a really, really good receiver, and a guy who now on his resume, being able to elevate Josh Allen, being able to elevate Drake May, like we've seen what he can do with these young quarterbacks, and that's got to count for a lot realistically in the career of Stephon Diggs. So I did not think I was a Bills believer at the start of the season. I thought they were clearly the best team in this division. I thought that I had the Patriots around where I had the Dolphins, which I was not high on the Dolphins either. But I thought that, if I got to pick a team, I think my official standings were Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets. I did think they were going to be better than the Jets, but that's because it's the Jets, man. There's not a lot of hope there. But that's why you have to consider when we do our reviews at the end of the season and you're like, what grade and how successful was this year? I don't care if New England gets blown out in the Super Bowl. This has been an A+++ season because this team is only going to get better. They still have cap space, especially the NFL about to up the cap another $30 million. You had a couple more years of Drake May on a rookie deal. You had a great draft class. You had a great first-year free agent class. And if you believe in, which I think is a pretty consensus now amongst smart media members, ownership, GM, coach, quarterback, you're 4 for 4. And that's going to put you in a position where you are in AFC power for years to come. Did I see it happening in year one? Obviously not. And I think you are going to get to a point with the Patriots where now, whatever level you think Drake May had to carry them right now and how great he's played this year, he is going to be able to do that less and less as the roster gets better, which it will, as the talent around him improves. He's not going to need top 2, top 3 MVP finishes to finish first in the division and have a chance to compete for Super Bowls. But I would be lying if I said, oh yeah, I just knew this team from day one was going to be this good. I wasn't convinced. I was one of those people when they played Buffalo early in the season. And I was like, I think this is going to be yes, you've had a good start to the season, but this is going to be your first knockdown moment. This is going to be your first, you're not quite there. And I've been very consistent on this as well. I do not care about the schedule stuff. Am I going to look, and this, I just want to get ahead of this. If you are somebody who is going to look at the Patriots next year and go, oh, see, they're not quite as good because the schedule's a little bit tougher. Just don't be dumb, man. They played a Bucs team early in the season when the Bucs were still good. The Jets and Dolphins are probably not going to be good next year, so they still have an easy-ish division. We'll see what the Bills look like with a rookie head coach. Obviously, they still have Josh Allen, so you can't count them out. But this has been such a wildly successful season, not just for this year, but setting themselves up for the future. And I know if you're my age, the Patriots dynasty was so damning and scarring because Brady was beating all of our favorite teams and he was winning all these Super Bowls and he was going to all these Super Bowls that we don't really want to like the Patriots. Although I've always kind of liked their uniforms. But we don't want to like the Patriots. We don't want to like Brady. We don't want to like Belichick. Like, we don't want to be just like, oh, they went 5 years of not being good and now they've already got their franchise QB, head coach, all these good things going their way. And maybe that's what led into my opinion of them to start the year. But you got to give credit where credit is due. And when you're wrong, you got to own it. I would not rechange or go back and revise my opinion at the start of the year. I do think they are still realistically I think next year's team is going to be even better because you have a chance to sign more free agents and you're going to have a better draft class. And now that you've made it this far and Drake May's established himself, there's going to be guys who want to go play with Drake May. George Pickens is a premier free agent. You don't think George Pickens would love to play with Drake May coming off the season he just had? Like, this is the Patriots are officially back as an AFC power. And so, again, I was just dead wrong on them to start the season. I did not think they were going to be this good, this quick. I got to own it. I was wrong on the New England Patriots. Congrats to them for being in the Super Bowl. And do not throw asterisks because history almost never remembers asterisks. Like, the all-time asterisk that I've been alive for is maybe the Raptors team because the Warriors fell apart. But when you say Kawhi Leonard, two-time NBA champ, and a finals MVP, you just say that. You don't go back and go, well, Kawhi Leonard, two-time champ, finals MVP. But what would have happened if KD, yes, for the nerds that want to go and break down every single thing that happened, they'll do that. But the average fan, you've got a two-time champion, and he's a finals MVP. So we don't need the asterisk on the Patriots schedule or what happened in the AFC Championship game. And again, that is coming from a fan of the team that they beat, whose quarterback was out. So congrats to the New England Patriots. Hell of a season. I was dead wrong on you, and I can admit that. Hard right for the Seattle Seahawks. And this is maybe a little, I don't know how real people are going to believe this, but again, this is why we record everything, and this is why we have film. Shout out. I didn't think Sam Darnold was this. I did think there was going to be a little bit of a step down from Addison, Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell, Darisaw, the left tackle. I thought Minnesota offensively had so many pieces in place last year for Darnold that he was going to come down a little bit. But I thought he was better than Geno. I've never been the biggest Geno guy. Give Geno credit for what he did in his career, bouncing back from being with the Jets to having good seasons with Seattle. But Darnold, I was like, this has real potential. I did not think his numbers, because again, he had another 4,000-yard season. He got 14 wins. That I would be wrong on. But Darnold over Geno, I was in the minority of like, hey, I think this has potential to be an upgrade. I didn't go out there and slam my foot down or put my chest out and go, absolutely, Sam Darnold is just light years better than Geno Smith. But I thought, if you saw what he did last year, what he was able to accomplish, again, will the numbers go down a tick? Because I did not predict JSN having a Justin Jefferson type season. But you also can see Justin Jefferson, who works with everybody, you saw the first time in his career a decline in stats and numbers because he didn't have the right quarterback. And what would he have if he had Sam Darnold? So Seattle giving them 3 years, $100 million. No. Did I have Seattle in the Super Bowl? No. But Sam Darnold over Geno Smith? I'll take that as a minority. And you got to look at, this is a little bit of a side note, but we're going to get this a little more at the end of the show. As much as I wish Sam Darnold's story was truly like, oh, this might revise NFL history, I think it's going to be tough. I just don't think guys have long enough careers in the NFL to have a Sam Darnold type story. But a guy who Kyle Shanahan liked, a guy who Kevin O'Connell liked, a guy who Clint Kubiak now is also going to be one of these head coaches who he likes. At some point, like, just these coaches and these NFL executives and these personnel guys, sometimes it's okay to just say they know better than us. And so, and this is my theory at the beginning of the year, Seattle got a ton of credit, and they deserved it, for being like, Russ is no longer the guy. Russ is no longer the player that he used to be. He's a franchise legend, an all-timer, but we got to move on. He's no longer that guy. They deserve credit for that. That same line of logic, though, why was it not applied when they got rid of Geno Smith. All I heard when they got rid of Geno Smith was, how can you get rid of Geno Smith? They just got rid of Russell Wilson, who historically is on an entirely different tier, multiple tiers above somebody like Geno Smith. So not saying that I had to be this Sam Darnold's MVP. Sam Darnold's going to go out there, get you your 4,000 yards, 4,200. Not saying I was that guy. But I never understood the whole, like, Darnold over Geno, to me, felt almost common sense. Like, I'm not shocked that you're looking up at the season and it's like, who had a better year, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith? And yes, does Geno Smith have a JSN? No, but he had him last year. Does he have Clint Kubiak? And we'll see how that looks as far as how great that holds up historically as an offensive coordinator. He's one of those geniuses because, remember, Clint Kubiak was on the Saints last year, and they got off to that amazing start, and then it all fell apart. You can have strong opinion. You can have confident opinions without having to be hot take, put your chest out. I ain't saying Sam Darnold's MVP. I'm not saying Sam Darnold, best quarterback ever. I'm not saying I just simply said Sam Darnold, I think, has a chance to be better than Geno Smith. And I don't think that was that crazy then. I obviously don't think it's crazy now. Historically, it looks really good. But again, Seattle got rid of Russell Wilson, who is, in my opinion, still a Hall of Famer. I understand people that say he's not, but I'm not really big on kicking guys out of the Hall of Fame once I feel like you've hit Hall of Fame status. So, Darnold over Geno. Seattle was right. I believe I was right. More to come after the break. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody kicking with me tonight. So, a couple things here. The NBA put out a fantastic product with Sunday Night Basketball. Like, it was absolutely amazing. Both games had intrigue. Both games had storylines. Both games had stars. Both games had everything that you could possibly want for debuting that, getting us back to that. Like, they had the Bob Costas pregame, which is fantastic. You've obviously got LeBron, Luka, the Lakers, the Knicks, Cat, Jalen Brunson, all those guys. And then you had the nightcap with the Nuggets. Jokic is back, the MVP, the best player in the world, and the best team still objectively, the OKC Thunder. Hear me out on something. And I'm not the person, I don't want to be the guy. I think basketball is in such a great spot right now. And I am really excited post Super Bowl to talk a lot of basketball. And especially for teams that I just don't feel get the love, like the Detroit Pistons, who, despite being clearly the best team in the East, they're talked less than some non-playoff teams. Like the Bucks, because of Giannis, get more attention than the Detroit Pistons do. And the Pistons are kicking people's teeth in this year. And their turnaround and their story, like, it's all. Once we're post Super Bowl, I am excited to talk a lot of basketball. I do wonder with the league, and I'm curious if this is the way they feel they have to do it. The Thunder, by all metrics, are kind of a dynasty in waiting. You have Shea, you got Chet, you got Williams, you've got incredible depth to the point the Thunder are still beating people, and they have suffered as many injuries, if not the most injuries, of anybody in the NBA. Like, the Thunder have really been going through it. They've played a large amount of the season without Jalen Williams. They've played games without Chet. They've played games without Alex Caruso. Like, everybody, I think SGA and Dort are the only two guys that have been consistently healthy all year. And because of that, and I could sit here and I could complain, and I don't like the way Lou Dort plays basketball. I don't like some of the stuff that I see, but that's neither here nor there, and I think I'm a little too close to being a fan to give you the best opinion on this. But I do think the rest of the league, because OKC has drafted so well, because OKC has put together these dominant last couple years, because they're the defending champions, because they kind of feel inevitable, barring a Jokic Wemby masterclass or maybe a Giannis trade and he links up with another superstar, that the rest of the league feels like, what if we all collectively complain so much about this style of play that the NBA is just going to overcorrect itself? Because it's one thing in levels of importance. Twitter's going to say whatever they want to say about the Thunder. Very low level of importance. Very low level. Like, it's just Twitter, there's a bunch of fans, it's a bunch of bots. No one's going to care. People are going to complain. Whatever. Fans at the actual game, you care because it's more directly your customer base, but fans are always going to boo if they feel like their team's not getting the call, because whenever fans have this guy on their team, Rocket fans didn't call James Harden a free throw merchant when he was winning games for them, winning 50-plus games, he was scoring 35 a night. They weren't calling him a free throw merchant. The same way Thunder fans aren't going to call SGA a free throw merchant. Then you have then you have media complaining about it, and it's like, okay, this is kind of a voice because they are setting the narrative to a certain degree, and if media, like legitimate media, not just random guy on a podcast or especially a team-centric show, like, it's going to be hard-pressed if you have a big Denver Nuggets podcast, and if they're like, I don't like the way OKC plays basketball, it's just a bunch of flopping, and there's a bunch of people in Denver right now, reporters, media, and it's like, okay, yeah, you guys are kind of saying it, but like, it's the ESPNs, the FS1s, the quote-unquote neutral sports shows and media members. If they were complaining, okay, we're going to pay attention. Then there's the coaches. And if the coaches turn every single game against OKC into but it's really tough because you can't touch Shea, the way they play defense, or you go full Chris Finch, and say, I think this is bullshit. They're playing a different game, and it creates a unfair competitive advantage because they're allowed to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, now we're going to pay more attention. And now you've got all these players who are, because of the way streaming works, and you got these players going to Twitch streamers, and they're talking, and they're like, look, man, Dylan Brooks, who, how do you feel about him, has played very well this season and has earned himself a more respectable and a bigger voice. And he's just like, yeah, man, Lou Dort just hacks people. Like, he just hacks people. Like, what are we doing? You're not playing defense. It's one thing. Look, all great defenders, especially if you have a physical presence to you, they are going to hack. They are going to foul to some degree. That is a part of being physical, that I am going to get a foul or two off, and I'm going to be extra aggressive and force the refs to call it. But as these players start making as these coaches and players start making more and more commentary around the OKC has played, that matters more. And then you get this new level that I didn't even know existed yet, and then I've just started to see it. And that is absolute flagrant behavior as a response to the way the Thunder play basketball. So you saw it with the Pelicans. And I know I'm one of like the 10 people who watch Pelicans games, but just hear me out. The Pelicans just started going, okay, we're going to bump back. And so Zion was extra physical. Saddiq Bey was extra physical. We saw the altercation at the end of the game between Saddiq Bey and Lou Dort, who his own coach came out and said, hey, man, the refs didn't get it under control. Yeah, Lou fouled him. They didn't call it. I thought it was a foul, and then they let it escalate. So his own coach is like, yeah, he fouled him, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then you have a game later, 2 games later, Anthony Edwards, who is just pushing Lou Dort, is just pushing, being extra physical, going, this is what you guys do. I think it's bullshit. I am now going to change the product and the on-floor, how this game is viewed because of what you guys are doing. And then you get the Dante DiVincenzo who just goes up and says, I am going to, you can't touch SGA, I'm going to go touch SGA. And he runs up there and he is physical. He's pushing them, like not even playing basketball, just trying to prove a point. That the NBA has to care about. You can't turn games into wrestling matches. You can't turn games into foul offs. You can't, it's one thing to be physical. And the NBA loved and the fans loved when the Celtics and Lakers were playing in the 80s and you would get this hard foul or two. And it was, but it ended at that. They loved the physicality. They loved the hard foul. It created these iconic moments. Kareem throwing the basketball. The Lakers and Celtics going to fight. But then it was over. It was like one thing, boom, move on. If teams are going to consistently play the Thunder like this, because the Thunder feel like they're allowed to play a different game than everybody else, that's when the NBA is going to have to step in and it's like, okay, we are going to have to overcorrect this, which that's then going to turn into the Thunder, who do struggle, like as an offense, do struggle outside of Shea. And Shea has had he's had some tour dates. Shea has had some 4-11s, some 9-20, like he's had some tour date games that he has offset. And I know he's on this all-time 20-point streak. He is offset with a lot of free throws. But this offense can stall out. And so now you got a stalled out offense, people being overly physical to try to prove a point. These are all building up into the product of the Thunder, which can be tough to watch. And that doesn't have to be my opinion. That doesn't have to be Twitter's opinion, because the NBA doesn't have to give a rip about that. But the NBA does have to care when its coaches and its players are actively changing the way the game is viewed and played, because they feel this team gets away with stuff that nobody else can. That's just a fact. Now let's talk about All-Star voting. This is so stupid, guys. I think this is a good and a bad thing. And let me try to explain the best that I can when it comes to All-Star voting. I feel the same way about the NFL playoffs. And I've been vocal. I hate the fact the playoffs now have 7 teams. it is a good story, and I think a good lesson even, to have the team that's just not quite there or the player that's not quite there. I think to have, if I said this with the NFL, if the Chargers, if the 7 seed didn't exist, week 18, the Broncos versus Chargers is now a real game that has to be played, not just a Trey Lance exhibition, whatever. Though, it was a bad football game because Sean Payton wasn't giving away anything, and the Chargers weren't really trying to win it, and they played Trey Lance. And if you don't have the 7 seed, the Chargers are genuinely fighting for their life. They are. The same goes for All-Star voting. I like it when a guy who you can acknowledge is having a really, really good season just isn't quite there for the All-Star. You don't think it's been, like, one of the main talking points about Jamal Murray has been, he's never been an All-Star. And Jamal Murray, who is not this overwhelmingly popular player, that's a real talking point in a discussion of, should he have been an All-Star? Was he cheated? How was he this year versus competition? Like, these are real things, discussions, conversations, debates. These are all valid sports convos to have. So, guys who just missed out on the All-Star game, I think Brandon Ingram has had a hell of a year. And I probably would have voted him to be an All-Star. Brandon Ingram, a guy who doesn't really talk, is not overwhelmingly popular, is probably going to get the most buzz around his name right now because he missed the All-Star game. And so I kind of like the fact that there's always somebody who just doesn't quite make it. And we're always going to talk about that. And you can never, unless you have 20 All-Stars each side, you're always going to have guys who just miss. And you're always going to have guys who, by the way, the dumbest thing we do, too, in regards to this, don't show me stats side by side of a player, because I don't feel bad. And I know Pascal Siakam made it, and I wouldn't have voted him either. I don't feel bad when the Clippers, and it's like, okay, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, oh, how did they not make it? Because they've been under 500. They were awful to start the season. I know they're on a little bit of a run, but I also don't, the NBA has historically always rewarded winning, which is why the Spurs would get 3 All-Stars, even though, Tony Parker or Ginobili potentially wasn't averaging All-Star numbers. The Warriors, Draymond was an All-Star because we rewarded winning. Like, the NBA has a history of that. So I don't really care. If you're going to use Siakam as the argument, fine. I don't think Siakam should have been an All-Star either. But I don't feel bad for Kawhi Leonard and James Harden when you've been under 500 the whole year and you were objectively awful to start the season as a team. So I know the numbers. He's averaging more points than this, that. I don't care. I don't. Sorry. The NBA is always rewarded winning when it comes to the All-Star game. The other thing that's really dumb about this is, and I think this is just disingenuous, and I think it's people doing it for clickbait, but let's respond. Of course, LeBron James is an All-Star. Not only is there a precedent for all-time icon legendary players, top 10 guys, getting a couple extra All-Stars at the end of their career because they're all-time legendary top 10 guys. Kobe, Mike, Kareem got an All-Star nod, averaging 9 points a game. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, be real. A starting spot, okay, I guess you can argue that, but I really wouldn't be mad if LeBron was an All-Star starter. And I said earlier in the show, I think somebody's going to give up their spot, whether that's Luka gives up his spot because he's his teammate, or, like, I just think LeBron's positionless. And so somebody I think is going to give up their spot, and you're going to have the NBA version of the Cal Ripken moment. Someone is going to go, like Alex Rodriguez out there at shortstop, and go, hey, look, man, this is your last All-Star game. And I don't even know if it's LeBron's last All-Star game. Someone's going to go, look, I think this is your last. You should come out here on the floor. You should be starting. Let's honor and celebrate you. You're one of the greatest players to ever play this game. You have been an amazing ambassador for this game. You're LeBron fucking James, man. Get out on the floor. You're starting. Sean Payton said this And it's absolutely true. And it's just, I'm referencing him because I heard him say it and I don't want to take credit for something I didn't think of inherently. Sean said, and he was talking about Quinn Miners, the Broncos guard from last year, who a lot of people inside the Bronco community felt like was snubbed for All Pro and Pro Bowl. He got them this year. And he said, hey, look, man, once you're there, you've made it, right? Like, he's like, once you've established yourself as one of those guys, you will continue to be in those conversations. You will continue to get those nominations, those votes. Like, you are going to start next year with a lead because you were an all-pro, first team all-pro this year and you were a Pro Bowler. And at the end of your career, you will also probably get one, maybe two more than you should have because you will already have that name value built up. You will already have that brand built up. But it also means for the young guys, which you are right now in regards to Quinn last year, you're probably going to miss out on one at the beginning of your career because there's older guys, there's vets, there's guys who are established who they have it. They have the namesake value. They have the resumes. They've already had the careers. So they're going to continue to get that value and they're going to continue to get that benefit of the doubt that unless you just flip, like you go from clearly great at your position to clearly awful, like where it's obvious, where people just watching the games on TV go, oh yeah, he's lost it. He's no longer as athletic, fast, twitchy, whatever it is that made you great. You're going to probably be screwed on one to start your career, and you're probably going to get one that you screwed somebody else at the end of your career. And again, the NBA has a history of this. Kobe got a couple All-Stars at the end of his career. That probably not necessary. If you want to go just pure All-Star performance. Kareem got one, averaging 9 points a game. And for the people that are like, oh, well, that distorts how great you are. No, when you're in those conversations that the Kobe Bryants, that the LeBron James, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars are in, you have first-team All-NBAs. And those aren't just given to you at the end of your career. They didn't just give Mike another first-team All-NBA when he was with the Wizards because he averaged 20. They didn't just give Kobe Bryant another first-team All-NBA when he was averaging 14. And the Lakers were 11-44 at the, like, the All-NBAs and the titles, when you're in that conversation, which is only a handful of people to ever walk the planet, those matter for the people that care about the historical context on sports. And are you losing that historical context because Kareem got a late All-Star, or Kobe got a late All-Star, or LeBron got a late All-Star? It's LeBron James. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, Kawhi's averaging 27. Tell Kawhi to get over 500. Oh, James Harden is having this great bounce. Tell James Harden to get over 500. I'm not going to feel bad for the Clippers. I'm not going to feel bad for those two. Oh, let's add into it. Who cares? If it was potentially their last season, fine. Maybe you've entered a different conversation. But for one of the greatest, maybe the greatest player we've ever seen in what might be his last run, yeah, give him the All-Star nod. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. All right, and we are back to close out the show. Fun fact broke during our last segment. The Clippers and James Harden are working on a deal to trade the 11-time All Star. Look, man, I said it beforehand. I don't feel bad for the Clippers. They've been bad most of the season, and now they're trying to trade James Harden. So Kawhi, this it is what it is at this point with Kawhi Leonard. I feel like Kawhi Leonard's legacy is pretty set in stone. I would be yes, if he adds another title, or if you were to add another major accomplishment, you had to reevaluate it. But I just don't see that happening, especially at this stage of his career. And the Clippers are pulling off pieces, and I just don't think they're good enough with or without said pieces. So there's that. But yeah, so that broke. Shams broke that about 15 minutes ago. Clippers and James Harden looking to move apart from each other. Where would James go that I think could be super impactful? It's tough because I just don't have contracts off the top of my head. I sent this to the group chat, and Tony said Houston. I don't think Houston can actually make it work because of finances, but we'll see. Again, a lot of contracts are funny money, but this new CBA apron is hell, and James Harden still makes a good amount of money. So, but James, to a team that does attempt to acquire James Harden, and maybe this is the boost Detroit needs, like they get James Harden to go along with Cade Cunningham, see what they have to give up. I think that's definitely interesting, and they don't have a ton of big contracts right now. So if you got to put Harden next to Cade and Jalen Duren, you don't give up the Thompson. You do not. If I get to keep Thompson, Duren, and obviously Cade, I think there's definitely a chance there. But we'll see where he goes. He's always had an ability to kind of mesh with any team that he's been in because he can be a dominant scorer. He can be a lead passer. He's just an extremely, supremely talented basketball player at his core. So we'll see what happens there. But it does look like his time in LA is coming to an end. So the Clippers are going to work with other teams and James Harden's camp to try to get him on a new team before the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens there. To close out the show today, and this is probably going to feel like a bummer, but it's just, in my opinion, the truth. There's been a lot of Sam Darnold conversations, and this one specifically, and that is Sam Darnold going to change the way that we evaluate quarterbacks? Let me start with this. Sam Darnold's story is 1,000% incredible. To persevere, to come back, to have the success that he's had, absolutely incredible. Amazing story. Amazing journey. And he's come off extremely humble because he keeps, anytime someone puts a microphone in his face and is like, Sam, what do you think about your journey? What do you think about your comeback? He's like, look, man, I appreciate every step of it. It is what it is. It's my story, but I'm here now and I'm focused on the now. And so he seems like a really easy guy to root for. The problem with the Sam Darnold story is the reality is, while we've seen Sam Darnold's comeback story and how great it's looked, look at everybody along the way. We know Sam Darnold still has a job, and now a very secure job and a nice, big, healthy contract. What about the Jets GM that drafted him? What about the Panthers GM that traded for him? What about any of the head coaches or offensive coordinators his first five years in the league? Obviously, when he went to San Francisco, Shanahan's still there. Sam's story is commendable. It's amazing to watch, and it's a wonderful story if you're looking through the history of sports and going, look at perseverance, look at struggle, look at what not giving up looks like. All these different things, they're all wonderful. But it's only wonderful for him. The reality is, in these jobs, guys do not have 7 years to wait for you to get it together. Have we probably gone too far in terms of being patient with quarterbacks? Yeah. If you're not good by the start of year 2 and we're already willing to write you off as a bust, obviously your draft position does matter to a degree. Like Bryce Young seems to be getting extended chances because he was the number 1 overall draft pick. Sam Darnold has gotten extensive chances because he was a top 5 draft pick. That stuff does matter. But all the coaches and GMs and executives and all the different families involved with Sam Darnold's journey up until this last 2 years, they don't have jobs. They don't have comeback stories. We're not talking about how great they look in 2026. If you can't figure it out in your first couple of years, this league, because it is so incredibly expensive to run a team, and it is so incredibly expensive to just get everything involved, and you have fans who are, you know, it's the difference in, are they going to watch? Can you sell them on, oh, it's year 4 Sam Darnold, maybe this is the year he finally figures it out, or do they just stop showing up to games? Do you lose season ticket holders? So yeah, Sam Darnold's story is amazing for Sam Darnold. It's not amazing for anybody else. Hell, even Kevin O'Connell, who, if we want to say that was the start of, I understand he went to San Francisco and was a Shanahan, but he played with O'Connell, right? And that was this first great season. Is Kevin O'Connell going to care that much about the Sam Darnold redemption story if he's got another underwhelming season in Minnesota and they say, hey, look, man, you might be an offensive genius, but Justin Jefferson's not happy. J.J. McCarthy's not the answer. We just fired the GM, so we got a new GM. You aren't his guy. And if we can't figure this out, we got Green Bay, who's historically always figured it out. Detroit, super talented. Oh, by the way, Caleb Williams and the Bears just had, maybe are about to peak and have their best offense in the history of their franchise. And if Kevin O'Connell's gone in a year, is he going to be able to go, well, at least I was a part of Sam Darnold's redemption story? The reality is, for most guys in most teams, you just don't have the time that it takes to have a Sam Darnold-like story. So while it's great for Sam Darnold, and while even Geno Smith, who had one similar, the reality is, to get the Darnold storyline, you got to be a high draft pick. People got to believe in your measurables. And then you got to have the humility to be a backup, and then go and just, knock on wood, you're not hoping for an injury, but you're hoping for an opportunity, which unfortunately the NFL usually coincides with injury. And can you have a comeback that way? We'll always support the comeback. We'll always root for the comeback. We always love the underdog stories. We always love the never gave up. But I'm hearing a lot of, well, Malik Willis now has a chance. I'm hearing Zach Wilson has a chance because, he was a Jets quarterback, wasn't very good. Sean Payton liked him, and now he's Sean Payton liked him. Mike McDaniel liked him. Is there a chance he is? No, because maybe the only team that's going to take a chance on that kind of guy is the Cardinals, and LaFleur, is he going to? Which, that's if. Like, do you really want potentially a reclamation project, or do you want Kyler Murray, who's just flat? Now, Kyler's got his issues, but he's flat out more talented than the other two. And if I got to do reclamation quarterback, well, I want the more talented, potentially reclamation quarterback, especially if he's already on my roster. Like, there's just not, Sam Darnold is not a realistic model for 99.9% of players. And so while the story is individually fantastic, I don't know if it really brings a ton of hope for guys. There is more, and his life has turned out fine, but there is more Josh Rosens who get few chances and are out of the league very quickly than there will ever be Sam Darnold's. Sam Darnold is a once-a-decade story. I know we love right now, it feels like we're at the climax or the peak of, well, Baker, reclamation project quarterback, got himself a nice contract. Sam Darnold, obviously, and Geno, but Geno's probably about to be out of a job. I think Baker, if he has another season like this, it's gonna be looking really rough for him. And while Sam Darnold's on top of the world right now, what's it look like in a year or two if the Seahawks start to fall back? Because you got to start paying other guys, and JSN is now one of the highest paid receivers in the league, if not the highest paid receiver. Devin Witherspoon is the highest paid corner, or one of the highest paid corners. Now, does the offensive line get worse because you've got even less resources to go to it? Okay, this defense is going to be as dominant if you already got 3 or 4 guys that you're paying max money to. Who's got to get, like, there's a lot of problems that are that could potentially pull up, and it's why, again, amazing story for Sam Darnold. I don't think it's an amazing story or something that is going to be repeatable for guys coming down the line. And maybe that's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of sports and the NFL in particular. Oh, man. Appreciate everybody coming through tonight. Appreciate anybody. New schedule again, 7 to 9 p.m. We're out here giving you the best sports commentary, actual opinions, actual thoughts, trying to have real conversations. Not just, yes, we are entertaining, but not just entertainment and jokes, actual sports talk. And we're not just here to clickbait you. This is HardFoul Radio. I will be back tomorrow night, also 7 to 9 p.m. Appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you then.